Welcome to Gotta Run with Will. My name is Melanie Eversley, and I'm your guest host for today. I'm here with Charles Kastner, author of Race Across America, Eddie Gardner, and the Great Bunion Derbies. You're going to be telling us a little bit about Eddie Gardner and the Bunion Derbies a little bit later. But first, a little bit about you. You're the author of 3 books about the Bunion Derbies. You are also a retired financial manager. You live in Seattle, a marathon runner, and boxer. Oh, and also writer for Black Past, Marathon and Beyond, and Northwest Runner. So you've got a nice, well-rounded background there. Right. But first off, you know, we were chatting about how you discovered the Bunion Derbies and Eddie Gardner. Can you talk about that?
Sure. In 1998, my father-in-law was dying in a hospital bed, sadly, and he told me about a long distance run from Port Angeles to Port Townsend, Washington, shortly before he died. And I said, well, how long ago was that? He said, like 1928, 29. So I said, back then people were running 50 miles? I don't think so.
This is before, gel shoes.
Before the 80s, right? The running boobs. Okay, I guess. So he passed. And then I went up and I did some research and was going through microfilm, and then I saw the Great Port Townsend Angeles Bunion Derby. And I said, well, what's a Bunion Derby, right? Why do they come up with that crazy name? It was based on a race across America in 1928. And so I went back to Seattle, and I read that a Seattle runner named Eddie Gardner was in it. So I said, wow, a Seattle guy running across America, 1928? Who is this guy? Eddie's black. I went, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And talk about that process of how you found out he was black, because I thought that was pretty interesting. When you were, like, you didn't see much in the mainstream press, but then you...
Yeah. Okay, so in Seattle, he was a famous runner in the 20s. He was the 10-mile champion of Washington State for 3 times in the 20s. So he was front page in the papers, and the white and the black press. So I knew he was black from that. But when he ran across America, he finished 8th in 8th place. And there was no mention about the discrimination he faced when the Bunion Derby, which started in Los Angeles and went to New York City. The first 1,000 miles was horrible. I mean, they went across the Mojave Desert, and they went over the Rocky Mountains, and then they got to Texas, and this is Jim Crow, the South, segregation. And before that, the white runners and the black runners, they slept in the same tents. They bonded together to that horrible experience. So 199 guys started. When they got to Texas Panhandle, 93 were still left.
Okay. Wow.
So the first thing that happened when they crossed into Texas is the black runners were put in their own tent. And all the white runners went, what happened? Where are these guys? And these guys thought it was horrible that they would treat their brother runners in that way, because these guys had run across the Mojave Desert. They run over the Rocky Mountains, in freezing cold, and they had suffered these things together, and they were like bonded like a group.
Take a little bit of a step back just to kind of set the scene. These were some really interesting times. I mean, the NAACP had been around just a few years and was based in Baltimore, not really having as much of a national outreach yet. The Tulsa race riots had just happened.
And I've definitely talked about that in my book.
Great. And they burned down the Black Wall Street. So there were a lot of things happening. And Martin Luther King was just born. I mean, so a different time.
Yeah, because the 28 race went across Los Angeles to New York City, and then the reverse course in 29. So he was running this, so he was going back, and
things were tough. And I remember you talking about people shouting things at him. At one point, somebody chased him.
Oh, okay. So we're both long distance people who've run races, right? When you're on the sidelines, you have your fans, right, cheering for you, going, yeah, go,
Telling
go,
you
go, go.
can do it, you know.
Okay, this is great. Okay, so they get to Texas.
You're almost there, you know.
These white farmers were yelling things at you. You know, they're going, go back to Alabama. You better not finish in front of the lead guys, right? Or we're going to shoot you. And then he had a black trainer who followed him across the country.
Oh.
And so when he was in eastern Texas, a group of white farmers surrounded the trainer's car and threatened to burn it for supporting Eddie in the race. And then in western Oklahoma, a white farmer rode behind him for an entire day with a gun trained on his back, daring him to pass another lead guy. And so, so when he got to western Oklahoma, he held back because of these threats. And he really had to decide if he wanted to continue in the race or not. So he made the decision that they can kill me if they want to, they can put me out of the race that way, but I'm going to run as a free man, unbounded by fear. So he started to run, and he was back up with the lead guys. And okay, so the white people hated him, right? But the black communities that he passed through embraced him for putting his life on the line like that. And so the black press picked up his race, picked up what he was doing each day, and then spread that word throughout the country.
Yeah.
So when he got to Chicago, he was pretty famous. So,
and you know, if I can just interrupt you, that's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah.
Because this is before GPS, this is before the internet.
Yeah.
Word was able to get to these cities before he arrived, and people were able to track his progress. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. And the cool thing was, most of the African Americans in Chicago came from the South, right? Millions had left and moved here. So like in 1910, I think there was 35,000 blacks there. By 1930, there was 235,000. So a huge increase in people. Yeah. So like 14 miles west of town, when he was coming up, the African American community came out and lined the street for 14 miles.
Wow.
Yelling and cheering for him as he went.
Yeah.
Because these guys had come from the South, they went to the North, and they realized what he had went through to come back to the South. Because Eddie left as a child, went to the West, and then he came back again to face this. And he put his life on the line, and he didn't stop. And he was in fourth place by the time he got here.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, that really is amazing.
I believe you said that he was originally from Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Okay, Birmingham, Alabama, and then his family
his
moved
family
west to
right,
different places.
Yeah, because a lot of African Americans went north, but some went west.
Right.
Now in Seattle, the African American percentage was about 1% of the city.
Okay.
And so he was just a small little group.
Yeah.
And so he could go to neighborhood schools. He didn't have to sit in the back of the bus. Of course, it wasn't a complete thing where he could have whatever job he wanted. There were still problems, but at least with sports and those kind of things, he was able he could compete. And the white press was happy he was doing that.
Yes.
And so it was nice.
Yeah. So this is from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, right?
Yes, right.
Clearly.
So this is in 29 when he ran the second race.
Oh, okay.
And he came back. And what I think is really cool about it is, so he finished in 8th place in the first race. And the second race, he really learned to be a more disciplined person. You know, in the first race, he would race fast to win a stage race, where the real key was to keeping a consistent pace across the country. He wouldn't do that. I mean, he would race fast and he would get tired out and collapse.
He was a sprinter.
He'd come
Fight that
back.
desire.
Right. But he was a much more disciplined person for the second race.
Interesting. So he learned.
Yeah.
He was like self-taught in terms of distance running.
Yeah. What fascinated me more than anything else was the courage that he showed in 1929 when he, okay, this is the Mississippi River here, right? So he sews an American flag on his jacket,
right,
and runs back into the South. At sub 3-hour marathon pace.
That's amazing.
He was making a statement.
Yeah.
He was saying, I'm Eddie, I'm back. I'm the fastest runner in the world, black or white, and in your face. Because he could actually be killed doing something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at that look on his face. It's just
You can tell. See, here's 26 when he was younger, but you can see how determined this guy is.
Yeah, for sure. Didn't you say something about when he first entered, it was purely for the prize money?
Yes, yeah.
But then his motivation changed as he went along.
Yeah, because there's 199 guys entered, and they were chasing a $25,000 first prize. In 1928, the average guy was making about $1,000 to $1,500 a year. So that would be almost a lifetime's worth of wages.
Yeah, it's definitely
in
worth
one. Yeah, I mean, you could buy a house for $3,000.
Yeah.
So 199 guys went. A lot of them didn't have much idea what they were getting into. You think about it, running 40 miles a day on average for 84 days.
Yeah.
I mean, we both were on these distances, and the idea, I would train for 6 months to run one race.
To run one, yeah.
Right, and then I'd be exhausted.
Not think about maybe the next day, maybe like hobble a couple of miles, just to work out the lactic acid.
You hit 20 miles, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Yeah, how are they doing that every day? That's just...
Yeah, I came within 40 seconds of qualifying for Boston one time.
Oh.
Yeah. It was like, and now it's just faded off into the distance, right?
Yeah.
So this guy was running Boston times just about every day.
All the way across the country.
Yeah. He was so talented. He was amazing. There were 5 African Americans who entered this race, the 28 race.
Okay,
and 3 finished. Sammy Robinson from Atlantic City and Toby Joseph Cotton from LA.
Gotcha.
Guess how old Toby Joseph Cotton was? 15.
What?
15 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Guess who drove the training car across the country to support him?
What, his mom?
Wesley, his 13-year-old brother.
Okay, that's another story.
That's right. And Toby Joseph Cotton is still the youngest person to ever run across America.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because even now, when you see teenagers at marathons, I do a double take. Like, should they be here?
His dad wrecked his back, and he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So his dad was in the back of the car. Wesley, the 13-year-old, was driving.
Yeah.
And James was 11-year-old James was bringing him food along the course.
Right. That's amazing. What I thought was very cool about you was that once you found out that there was a major racial component to the story, you began educating yourself. In order to get a better understanding of the racial climate.
Right, the souls of black
to the point where you're now writing for Black Past, that I have a lot of respect for.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Quintard is the guy who founded it.
Yes.
Dr.
But you read Du Bois and Booker T. Washington to compare their philosophies.
Definitely. You see, that's Booker T. Washington. His idea was that he's going to produce skilled farmers, craftsmen, who the Southern whites are going to say, oh, these guys are such good people that we're going to give them their full rights because they deserve them. Where the boys said, no, we're already Americans. No, we want our rights now, and we're going to fight for our rights. And we're going to challenge you in the courts, we're going to challenge you on the ground, and we're going to challenge you whatever, and we're never going to stop fighting. Right?
Yeah.
The African Americans went in World War I, right? And a lot of them were killed. Why would we put up with something that we fought, that we lost our lives to defend when you won't give us the full rights that we were fighting for?
Right.
And that's what I think Eddie was doing. He was a foot soldier for him, right?
Yes,
he was demanding his rights as an American citizen to run in a race and follow his idea of the American dream.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
$25,000. He wanted that prize money.
Yeah.
Southern whites didn't want him to race, but he said, F you.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Going to do it anyway.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think that demand for your God-given rights that a lot of African Americans, a lot of white people died for is noble.
Yes.
You know, it makes me
Yeah.
cry
I mean, he was risking his
almost.
life.
Risking his life. You know, how would you like be on a little narrow road, have white farmers and their kids on each side yelling the N-word at you constantly?
Right.
I mean, it just blows me away. I mean, I didn't get into this. I got into this to write a history of the 28 race and the 29 race. I didn't get into it to become expert in African American history, but I had to be able to tell his story.
Well, because it's a story that has to be told.
I'm just so proud of Eddie. I mean, really, and he never got the credit he was due.
Yeah.
So one of my missions in life was to tell this story.
Yeah. How has the reception to this story been in Seattle? I mean,
I think it's catching on now.
Welcoming to this, amazing piece of Black history that, was rooted in this.
There's a local station who's going to film my next book talk.
Okay.
So for Black History Month. I just think it's the most fascinating story in the world. I think it's moving material.
Yeah.
You know, because I had my first book, I had 2 screenplays written on it, and Lionsgate had the rights to the second one, and it didn't go anywhere.
And the second one was about somebody named Johnny Salo?
Right, because he won that race.
Okay.
That was about him.
Okay.
But Toby Joseph Cotton, the 15-year-old? Wouldn't that be a cool story too? Oh my God. Dad's in the backseat, the 13-year-old's driving the car, people are yelling death threats at him. You know, but they're still going.
You should work with the museum, the Smithsonian Museum in DC, NMAHC.
I just think these guys deserve an honored place in American history as American heroes. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
I don't care black or white or what color you are. This is bravery.
That's right.
These are American citizens standing up for their rights to be Americans.
That's right. The 28 race, he made it all the way across. And then 29, he's armed with, his own, the lessons that he learned the hard way about how to run better and smarter.
Yeah.
So what happened in the second time he...
In Oklahoma, he pulled a leg muscle and he had to drop out.
Okay.
But then back to Seattle, and he kind of was lost to history after that.
Okay.
All
right.
Because once you're a professional runner, right? Once you cross that line, the amateur and the professional, then you can never go back to the amateur racing again.
Right.
That time. So once you accept prize money, once you compete in a race like that, then you can never go back and run again unless it's a professional race. So he was sort of cut off from racing after that.
Okay.
So it was kind of sad. But
so that's great that you unearthed the story, because I know you said you did track down some family members, but
yeah, he never had kids. So he had a sister, and she had some friends, and I talked to them, but people didn't remember much about him. So he died in '66.
Okay.
So it was a long time frame. The first book written about the 28 race didn't take into account the black press. And so Eddie just looked like an erratic runner who was very talented, but couldn't really keep up with the lead guys because he couldn't run a consistent pace across the country. But there was no mention made in the white press about the discrimination he faced, the death threats or anything like that. But you read the black press, it's like war correspondence.
It's a whole different story.
Writing from the South, like the Chicago Defender, the Black Dispatch, these black newspapers, and you read these things, and it's like you just get this totally different view of the world.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because the white press ignored that aspect.
Right. I like to think that running is a great equalizer. When you belong to a run club or you run with a group of people, you don't know if you're running with a CEO or your cousin.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Nobody talks about what they do. It's just everybody loves this thing that they do. You know? And it seems as if some of the black runners in history, their presence, their success has equalized things in a certain way. We have Ted Corbett, who was here in New York, first president of New York Roadrunners, an Olympian.
Right.
There's a black running team in Cleveland called Team Marathon, and they started out, I think, in the 80s, running through the neighborhoods of East Cleveland, and kids would just kind of watch this group of 60 or 70 people just running through these streets. So, with that in mind, what do you think that Eddie Gardner has anything to teach us, or that his story teaches us anything, particularly in the current climate, which is a little bit rocky?
Yes, I really do. I mean, our ability to pursue our idea of the American dream, right? And your skin color shouldn't get in the way of it. When they lined up...
March 4th, 1928. The newspapers called it the Bunion Derby. A foot race on Route 66 from Los Angeles to Chicago and on to New York City, with $25,000 for the winner. The runners included Australians, Latinos, African Americans, Italians, Finns, Englishmen, and Native Americans. Many of the top runners and walkers of the day joined the race.
Chase that $25,000 prize. They're African Americans, Native Americans, European Americans, but they're Americans. And Americans believe in opportunity. Americans believe we can make ourselves better than who we are by the sweat of our brow, right? And that's what he was doing. And nothing was going to stop him. White people weren't going to stop him in the South screaming horrible things or pointing guns at him. And that is a hopeful thing.
Yeah. This research, this effort has changed you in a way.
Yeah.
Would that be the case? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't set out to write about African Americans. But I love to write about courage. I love to write about individuals doing remarkably hard things. And running across America is tough.
Yes.
Can you imagine? That was 1928 when their ideas about training and nutrition and proper shoes and was just starting.
Right.
And the idea that Eddie was out there just inspired me. And back in the 50s, in the 60s, most people didn't think, in the 40s, this sounds weird, but most people didn't think African Americans could concentrate well enough to run long distance.
Okay.
It was sprinters, right?
Right.
They could do that, and that's the old...
A lot of folks were kind
of... Right. And Eddie was running in the face of that. And Jim Crow is based on difference, right?
Yes.
That white people are superior and black people are inferior. They can't concentrate, they can't do all those things. And so that allows white people to do whatever they want to because they're not really human, right?
Right.
they're subhuman.
Not quite a person.
Right, they're not quite a person. So you can prosecute them, you can take their voting rights away.
Sure.
Because really we're trying to take care of these people.
Right,
And that's a convenient excuse for the South. But Eddie comes in saying, I'm an American. I'm faster than you guys. And my Bunion Derby buddies love me as a brother, you know? We are common together. We are runners doing something together.
That's right.
So we are one. Where the South wants to say, no, you're vastly different.
No, right.
And the idea of Eddie going across the South, reminding people of the facade of what Jim Crow is, was a powerful thing. And Du Bois wanted to do the same thing.
Yeah.
He wanted people to see that Negroes, quotation marks, are just like everybody else.
That's right.
And who want their constitutional rights, who want their share of the American dream. And I found that very powerful that Eddie would do that. In the birth year of Martin Luther King, he sews an American flag on his shirt, runs back into the South, just going, F you, here I am. Pretty gutsy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you heard from the descendants of any of his teammates or any of the other folks who?
Oh, yeah.
What have they said?
Not the black runners, but Charlie Stone. His dad was in the race, and he wrote a book about himself running across America. No one had seen before, so Charlie gave it to me. And it was amazing. And Charlie was born during the race.
Oh, wow.
So he was a Bunion Derby baby.
Oh, gosh. He was born during the race.
Right. And he just died last year.
Okay.
So Charlie Stone. This book is a lot stronger because of the material Charlie shared with me. And I've heard of a lot of other family. You know, it's nice because they're very proud of their grandfathers or their great uncles or something. And they've shared things with me too that is reflected in this book as well. So I published my first book in 2007. This is 2020. So that's a long time to be out there. And that's one of the most fun things about the book too, is hearing from family.
Yeah.
Because they realize, like, wow, my ancestor actually ran
across
40 miles a day for 84 days. And it's so difficult.
So, well, this has been great. This has been a treat for me because I love history and I love African American history and I love running. So this is like everything that I love. So I've really enjoyed learning about Eddie Gardner. Hopefully, other people have too. Any final words? Anything that you want to share about him that we haven't touched on that you think is important or that people should know?
I think someday, in my hometown, I would like to have a statue with Eddie right there with his hands up in his outfit at some track so the kids could see him and be inspired by him. So that's one thing I want to do before I pass away.
Yeah, maybe that's a Seattle project.
Exactly.
Maybe you could team up with the Seattle Marathon.
Yeah, right. Because I think he's so inspirational to make sure that his legacy is not forgotten. And there's something tangible. African American kids, white kids, whoever can look at and be proud of that this guy existed. And in his moment when he had to decide if he wanted to risk his life or not, he risked his life and he became a symbol of resistance and hope. Yeah. And it's a very, very powerful thing. And I just hope Mr. Gardner is long remembered for his courage.
Well, you have made a huge contribution toward making that happen.
I appreciate that.
So thank you so much, Charles Kastner, author of Race Across America, Eddie Gardner, and the Great Bunion Derbies. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks to Manhattan Neighborhood Network and to Will Sanchez. This has been Gotta Run with Will.
Well, okay.
I had a similar boss.